The safe landed with a hollow thud, louder than its rusted weight should have allowed. Pitted metal flaked onto the concrete, but the dial glinted, unaged, almost surgical. Wind swirled through the alley, rattling broken glass. Then, from deep inside the sealed box, came a single, deliberate knock. The sound echoed, not like impact, but like intention. Holly blinked. No one else heard it. But the safe had answered. Something inside wasn't just alive, it was aware. Holly Marks never minded being the town oddball, until her oddities started moving on their own. Everyone in Elridge had a story about Holly Marks. Some called her eccentric, others called her brilliant, but most just waited to see what strange thing she'd drag into town next. She ran the Salvage Spoon, a quirky café cobbled together from rusted gears, stained glass windows, and repurposed barstools. If it looked forgotten, Holly could make it beautiful again. The safe was her latest find. She spotted it at a liquidation auction behind the boarded-up Ridgeway Motel, a place that had been left to rot since the early 80s after a mysterious fire gutted half its east wing. Holly hadn't come looking for anything in particular, but there it sat, sunken into cracked linoleum and nearly swallowed by time. Rust had consumed it like ivy, but the structure was solid, heavy, and, somehow, calling. The auctioneer grunted when she pointed at it. Lot 17. That old anchor? Scrap price. You'll need help moving it. I'll manage, she smiled. Someone behind her snickered. You gonna cook soup in that thing, Marks? It took 3 men and a hydraulic jack to load it into her truck. By dusk, the safe sat square in the center of her café's brick floor. Holly buffed its faceplate with a cloth and named a new drink after it, the Vaulted Latte. Marta, her longtime friend and co-owner, rolled her eyes. Let me guess, smoky espresso with a hint of mystery? Exactly, Holly winked. And a dash of rust, if they're lucky. Business was slow that evening. Just a few regulars sipping black coffee and playing checkers. The safe became a curiosity, a conversation starter, a photo op. You gonna open it? One customer asked. If it wants to be, Holly replied, half joking. At closing time, she switched off the pendant lights, letting their reflections scatter across the polished counter. Her cat, Lenny, circled the room like usual, but when he neared the safe, he froze. His fur bristled. A low growl rumbled in his throat. Lenny, Holly said softly, but the cat hissed and bolted for the stairs, tail puffed like a duster. She stood there, hand hovering over the light switch. The room was quiet, too quiet. Even the kitchen's ancient fridge had gone still. She moved toward the safe, slowly. Just as she passed it, the cafe radio crackled, shifting from soft jazz to static, a sharp, distorted whine. Holly stared at it. The static continued for a beat, then snapped back to silence. She flicked the lights off and climbed the stairs to her loft above the cafe. But sleep was light. Fitful. Something about the safe itched at the back of her mind. Not fear, exactly. Not yet. More like unfinished business. By morning, she came down with a fresh pot of coffee and a plan to scrub the safe for real, remove the grime, oil the hinges, maybe even repaint it if it stayed locked. But when she walked in, her foot hesitated mid-step. The safe had moved. Not far. Maybe 3 inches. But enough. She checked the floor, no scrape marks, no drag trail. Just a faint impression where it had been and a new silence where it now stood. The angle was different. It faced the front window now. Holly set the coffee down carefully. She crouched, inspected the wheels underneath, the floor's slight dip, looking for anything that could explain it. Maybe the metal settled, she murmured aloud. Maybe the floor's warped. But even she didn't sound convinced. Still crouched, she reached behind the safe to wipe off the dust and paused. The texture shifted beneath her fingers, from coarse rust to smooth steel. She scraped the grime with her fingernail and leaned in close. Stamped into the metal, almost hidden. SECOND/entry/1972. She stared at it, lips parting slightly. It didn't look like a serial number. More like a designation. A label for something that had never been meant to surface. Her hand trembled just slightly as she withdrew it. Behind her, the café radio turned on by itself, tuned to dead air. The safe's dial spun like silk, and locked with a click, as if choosing her. Holly waited until the café closed for the night to try the dial. She'd left a handwritten, "closed for repairs," sign on the front door, not because anything was broken but because she wanted privacy. The radio hissed quietly in the corner, set low. Lenny the cat was upstairs, she'd shut him in. Marta had stayed, perched on a barstool with her arms crossed. "I don't know what you think you're going to find, Hole," she said. "Could be full of moldy bills. Could be nothing." "It moved," Holly said. "It moved and I didn't move it." Marta tilted her head. "Settling metal. Floor dips. The building's old." "Then why did the radio hiss?" Holly snapped, then immediately regretted her tone. She rubbed the back of her neck. "I just want to check something." She crouched at the safe and turned the dial. It didn't grind or stick the way old safes do. It glided, soundless, until it stopped itself. Click. Holly tried again. The dial spun backward this time, whirring so fast her fingers almost slipped. Another click. She glanced at Marta, who raised an eyebrow. "Feels like it's responding to you," Marta murmured. "This looks like something that once sat under a Kremlin desk." Holly managed a weak laugh, but her heart was thudding. She dug a fingernail under a flake of rust at the safe side, prying it loose. A thin curl of corrosion peeled away, revealing smooth steel beneath. A sequence of characters emerged, not numbers, but a military-style serial stamp, still sharp despite the years. "What does it say?" Marta leaned in. Holly squinted. 75 Delta. Then a code. Then. Second ENTY again, in miniature. "That's not motel junk," Marta muttered. "That's government metal." The café clock on the wall ticked over to 3:17 a.m. At that exact moment, the radio went silent, and something like a cold draft moved across the floor. Holly swallowed hard. A small voice cut through the stillness. "It's counting backward." Both women whipped their heads toward the sound. In the doorway stood a boy of about 8, one of the café regulars' kids. His mother had clearly gone to the restroom, he must have slipped out. He was staring at the safe with wide eyes, his hands clasped in front of him. Holly forced a smile. "Sweetheart, it's late." "It's counting backward," the boy repeated. Tick-tock. Tick-tock. Then stop. He blinked and turned, walking back toward the restroom before either of them could stop him. Marta exhaled sharply. "That was creepy." Holly nodded mutely. She bent closer to the safe, pressing her ear against the cold metal. This time she heard it, a faint, rhythmic sound, like a timer winding down. Not a clock tick, but a series of click-click-clicks, 3, pause, 3, pause, over and over. She jerked back. "It's a pattern." "Could be a bomb," Marta said. Half joking, half not. "Then why isn't it steady? Why is it changing?" Neither spoke for a moment. Holly turned to the chalkboard behind the counter, snatched a piece of chalk, and scribbled the clicks as she heard them. 333, pause, 333, pause. After a minute, the pattern shifted to 222. "It's decreasing," she whispered. "Counting backward." "From what?" Holly stared at the safe. "I don't know. But it wants me to notice." Marta's arms tightened across her chest. "We should call somebody." Sheriff, fire department. Call them and say what? That my antique is making math? Silence settled heavy. Holly stepped back from the safe, eyes scanning the room. Something chalky caught her eye near the far wall, faint smears like fingerprints dragging across the plaster. She walked over. Numbers. Written in pale residue, backwards, as though someone had pressed them into the wall from the other side. 317, 316, 315, down the list. Holly's stomach flipped. Marta, she called softly. Look. Marta joined her, mouth tightening. You didn't do this? No. They both turned slowly back toward the safe. The dial glinted under the low light like an unblinking eye. Holly whispered, "It's trying to tell me something." Marta whispered back, "Or warn you." Holly snapped a photo of the backward numbers, but when she looked at the screen, the image showed a red glow leaking from the safe seams. Every test Holly ran brought a new response, measured, deliberate, like the safe was paying attention. The next morning, Holly didn't unlock the café. She hung a new sign instead. Private event, do not disturb. Inside, she set up a folding table near the safe, spread out a legal pad, 3 types of flashlights, a laser thermometer, and a tape recorder. She wasn't just listening anymore, she was documenting. Marta arrived late, coffee in hand and worry on her face. Let me guess, she said, setting the cup down. Today's experiment, poking a haunted safe with a stick? Controlled stimuli, Holly said. We start with sound. Then light. Then heat. Marta sighed. And what happens when the safe pokes back? Holly didn't answer. She pulled a tuning fork from a drawer and struck it against the countertop, then held it close to the safe's face. Nothing. She tried again, lower tone this time. Clink. The safe responded. A single, dull echo pulsed from inside, off rhythm, not a copy but a reply. Holly's hand froze in midair. Did you hear that? Marta's jaw clenched. Yes. Yes, I did. Okay, Holly said slowly, now we try heat. She plugged in a small heat gun and waved it lightly across the surface. 4-5 seconds, nothing. Then the safe gave a low, mechanical click. Followed by a faint hiss. Something inside adjusted. Not jammed. Not broken. Responsive. Holly jotted notes furiously. It reacts to thermal variance. That means it's sensor-based, or aware in some way. Marta leaned against the counter. Or it's booby-trapped, and we're morons. By noon, Holly had drawn a crowd despite the sign. Locals pressed up against the café windows, curious. A few knocked. One elderly man held up a handwritten note through the glass. That safe belonged to Ridgeway Motel. Stay away. She ignored him. Instead, she stuck a printed grid on the wall labeled Café Vault Code Board. It had a chalk column for each pattern observed, sound/light/heat/movement. She invited patrons to suggest combinations. Word spread. By mid-afternoon, a group of teens were debating whether the safe was alien tech or Cold War loot. Someone left a candle on the doorstep labeled to whichever spirit's inside. Marta scoffed. They think it's a game. Let them, Holly murmured. Let them think it's harmless. Because she knew it wasn't. That night, she reviewed the audio recordings. One segment, time-stamped 3:17 a.m., stood out. The safe emitted not knocks but a rhythmic sequence of pauses. Like Morse code. She pulled up a decoder app. Translation, WAITING. Holly dropped her pen. What the hell are you waiting for? She whispered. The dial glinted in the screen's glow. No movement. Just that unrelenting shine. She tried tapping out a response. WHOAREYOU. Silence. Then, 3 faint knocks. Equal spacing. Then 4. Then 5. Increasing. Building. She added a final note to the code board. Progression response escalating under interaction. Would you keep testing, or walk away before it answers back? Around midnight, Holly shut off the lights, exhausted. She'd done all she could without tools she didn't have. She left the recorder running and headed upstairs. She was halfway up when she heard it. A clink, then a grind, then a faint electrical buzz. She turned slowly. Below, in the café darkness, a tiny red light had flicked on beneath the dial, glowing like an eye. Just one. Blink. Blink. Blink 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 blink. 6 times. Then dark. The next morning, the chalkboard grid had changed, new numbers added in a handwriting that wasn't hers. The café had become a theory mill. But theories weren't going to stop what was already starting. By day 3, the salvage spoon no longer resembled a café, it looked like a command center for a ghost hunt, a military briefing, and a conspiracy podcast all rolled into one. People came not for lattes, but to stare at the safe and argue. The chalkboard grid was now covered edge to edge. Patterns, numbers, symbols. Someone had written "Open the Eye" in red chalk across the top. Holly hated that it felt right. Marta had stopped pretending it was funny. Half the town thinks you're summoning spirits, she said. The other half thinks there's Nazi gold inside. And that guy, she pointed to a bearded man sketching runes near the safe, says he's a vibrational clairvoyant. Holly, come on. I'm not inviting them, Holly muttered. They're just showing up. But she didn't ask them to leave either. Everyone had a theory. Theory 1. A hidden fortune. Bank loot from the 1940s. It was a safe, one old man grumbled, that's what safes are for. Theory 2. Cold War spy tech. The kind of prototype they built during Project MKUltra. Mimics auditory feedback, said a college dropout who'd read 3 books and carried 2 crystals. Like a psychic reel-to-reel. They used these to record emotion, not sound. Theory 3. A cursed object. You ever notice the red light only blinks when someone touches it who's anxious? A barista whispered. It feeds off tension. Holly nodded politely at all of them. She even scribbled notes. But none of the guesses explained why the safe was counting down. Or why the lights flickered when she slept. Or why the café thermometer read 41 degrees Fahrenheit near the safe, no matter what. She paced behind the counter, flipping through the printout of Ridgeway Motel's demolition documents she'd pulled from the county archive. Most of it was redacted. But one line stood out. Sublevel clearance incomplete, interior chamber inaccessible. Containment assumed. Containment. She was about to dig further when the front bell rang. It was Evan Rourke, a retired Army locksmith who now ran a hardware store upstate. Holly had emailed him days ago, before the lights started blinking. He eyed the safe warily. That's older than it looks. You mean it's rare? I mean it's from a branch of government that doesn't file patents. He ran gloved fingers across the seams, tapped lightly near the base, then tested the dial. After a minute, he stepped back. I'm not opening that, he said flatly. Because it's rigged? He looked around, lowered his voice. Because it's responding. I've only ever seen that once, and that one was locked from the inside. He left without another word. 2 hours later, the cafe phone rang. Marta answered. She froze, then held it out to Holly. No name. No number. The voice on the other end was male. Calm. Unhurried. Stop testing it, he said. You don't understand what you're waking up. "Who is this?" Holly asked. But the line was already dead. Later, Holly played the café security feed. At 3:17 a.m., the video glitched. For exactly 23 seconds, the feed distorted into static. When it resumed, the safe had moved again, rotated exactly 11 degrees clockwise. She opened her notebook. 11 degrees. 11 characters in second entry. 11 digits in the military code. 11 lights in the café. Everything was syncing. She stared at the red light beneath the dial. It didn't blink that night. It pulsed. The safe had always been closed. But the truth was, it had already started opening. At exactly 3:17 a.m., the safe let out a long, breathy hiss, and something wet leaked from its seam. It happened on the fourth night. Holly had dozed off on the café couch, wrapped in a blanket, the notebook still in her lap. Marta had gone home after midnight, too tired to argue anymore. The chalkboard grid was full. No more guesses. No more theories. Just a waiting game. At 3:17 a.m., the safe clicked. Not a sharp mechanical tick like before, but a slow, dragging clack followed by a soft hiss, like compressed air venting from a valve. Holly bolted upright. The lights above flickered once. Then silence. She stood and approached it cautiously. The air smelled like ozone and rust, thick and metallic. On the concrete below the safe's frame, a small puddle had formed, a thin black sheen, like oil. She turned on her phone flashlight and aimed it at the open seam. The door had unlatched. Just barely. 1 inch. Enough to show a narrow slit of interior, a black void and a folded wax-sealed packet shoved against the gap. Holly hesitated, then reached for her gloves. Inside, carefully tucked in the lining, were 3 items. A bundle of aged, folded maps, sealed with wax. A small velvet pouch, damp and heavy. A rusted key, triangular in profile, unlike any lock she'd ever seen. She set them gently on the table and peeled the wax seal from the topmost map. The paper cracked and groaned. The ink was faded but legible. A map of Elridge, but wrong. The town was shaped the same, but the streets were different. The café didn't exist. Several familiar buildings were missing. And on the far side, near the old train depot, a structure she'd never seen was marked in bold, black ink. Second entry. Below it. Clearance active, dated 1972. She unfolded the rest. Every map was different. Versions of the town across decades, 65, 72, 83, 94. Buildings disappeared. Reappeared. Entire streets shifted. She stared at the key, then finally, the velvet pouch. Inside, nestled in padded cloth. A gold-capped human tooth. Her breath caught. A molar, perfectly intact. On its face, etched in tiny type, M47/HM. HM. Her initials. She dropped it, hands trembling. No. No way. She couldn't finish the sentence. As she stepped back, the safe's interior clicked again. A hidden panel slid open inside. Behind it, in a compartment no wider than a shoebox, sat a dusty microcassette recorder and a faded green cloth armband with black letters. Property of Halder Finch. Marta arrived 20 minutes later after Holly's frantic call. She found her friend pale, pacing the café floor. The objects were laid out on a clean towel, arranged like evidence. "Who's Halder Finch?" Marta asked. "I don't know," Holly said. But he wasn't just storing things. He was tracking something. Or someone. Or, everywhere. Marta pointed to the tooth. "That's not just something, Holly. That's someone." "I think," Holly swallowed. I think I've been in this safe before. What? I don't know how. But that tooth is mine. Marta stepped back. Okay. That's enough for me. We need to call someone. A historian. The sheriff. Anybody. No, Holly said quietly. Not yet. What would you do if you found a tooth with your initials inside an abandoned military safe? Burn it? Bury it? Or broadcast it? Later that night, when Holly was alone again, she pressed play on the microcassette recorder. A man's voice crackled through, weary, mechanical, and slow. If you're hearing this, containment failed. They're loose. Project Mimicry terminated early, but it didn't die. It evolved. Click. Were. Second entry is compromised. Third is unlisted. Click. Do not attempt to isolate. Do not attempt to destroy. They remember. Behind the pouch, she found a final note, handwritten and water-stained. Vault 2 was the decoy. Vault 3 is beneath you. The maps weren't memories, they were instructions. And one of them pointed straight beneath her feet. Holly spent the next morning tracing every map in silence. She measured, overlaid, scanned each one against current zoning data, then cross-referenced with fire records and old motel permits. One spot came up again and again. It wasn't on any modern blueprint, but in every historical version, going back to 1957, a rectangular access chamber was marked directly beneath the block the salvage spoon now stood on. Second entry. The café had been built over it. Or in place of it. Either way, something was still down there. She ran her hand along the café floor near the safe, tapping gently across the concrete. Hollow. Then dense. Then hollow again. A pattern. A ring. Beneath the rug by the prep sink, she found a rust-stained metal outline in the tiles, a faint hatch, sealed flush with the ground. No handle. No hinges. She called Marta. I think the safe was a breadcrumb, Holly said when she arrived. It's not the destination. It's the trigger. You're talking like it's a person, Marta replied. Maybe it is. They pulled the rug back and cleared the space. Holly brought a pry bar, Marta brought her grandfather's toolbox. It took nearly an hour to get the edges loose. The tile crumbled, then concrete cracked, and finally, with a grinding pop, the hatch lifted. A wave of musty, metallic air rolled up from below. Flashlights in hand, they descended a rusted ladder that stretched into black. 10 feet. 20. 30. At the bottom, a narrow tunnel, just tall enough to crouch. It opened into a chamber like a forgotten bomb shelter, lit only by weak emergency bulbs clinging to life. Holly whispered, this wasn't a storage room. It was a bunker. Metal shelving units lined the walls, filled with sealed crates, damp folders, and vacuum-packed bags labeled with strange terms, facial set A, behavioral pattern delta. Echo unit, incomplete. Then they saw the teeth. Hundreds of them. Each in velvet pouches identical to the one upstairs. Each tagged with initials and dates. Some as recent as 2023. Most were capped in gold, stamped with designations. Holly's hand hovered over one. DL/1981. Who are they? Marta whispered. Not who, Holly said. What? She approached the center of the room, where a platform held a second safe. Same model. Same red light under the dial. This one blinked in a slow, rhythmic loop. Next to it, a file cabinet, partially open. Inside were blueprints, mostly eroded by moisture. But one was legible. Project Mimicry, Phase 3 Relocation Report. She flipped through the document. Scribbled notes. Lab codes. Terminology she didn't recognize, neurological proxy implantation, cognitive transfer shell, host matching viability. But one line froze her. Vault 2 failed after 11 active attempts. Vault 3 will require direct subject integration. Subject integration. Marta backed away from the cabinet, her eyes scanning the flickering lights. Holly, we need to leave. There's a recorder. Another one. Holly moved to a dusty terminal embedded in the wall, clicked the power switch. Amazingly, it lit up, briefly, and played a crackling message. Finch's voice again, distorted but clear. Control failed. Simulations exceeded expected retention. They no longer need instructions, they've memorized the patterns. A pause. Then. They've taken names. They've taken habits. They've taken rooms. Holly turned to Marta. It's not just duplication. It's replacement. Something crashed in the tunnel behind them. Both women spun. Lights flickered again. A soft whisper drifted through the air. Not from the recorder. Not human. A chorus of voices, faint and overlapping, repeating a single phrase. We remember. We remember. We remember. Marta grabbed Holly's wrist. We're leaving. Now. As they climbed the ladder, Holly looked back down. The second safe's red light blinked once. Then twice. Then stayed on. The whisper didn't stop when they closed the hatch, it got louder. Project Mimicry didn't end. It simply changed its address, and kept collecting. They didn't sleep that night. Holly sat at her kitchen table, poring over every document they'd brought back from the bunker. Marta hovered nearby, pacing, checking the front door every few minutes as if something might push through it. The whisper hadn't stopped. Even now, muffled through the floorboards, it rose in waves, like static underwater. They tried recording it, but playback revealed nothing. Only silence. Yet they both heard it. Felt it. We remember. We remember. The term echoed in Finch's files. Not as a slogan, but a function. Finch's original reports painted a disturbing picture. The military had once developed psychological mimicry protocols. Not artificial intelligence, not robots. Biological replicants, grown from harvested traits, speech patterns, tooth enamel, muscle memory. Replacements built not to look like us, but to be us. The teeth were anchors. DNA-bound resonance points that allowed retention drift, Finch's phrase for the process by which a copy began to overwrite the original. The gold caps weren't for preservation. They were for tuning. We've been sitting above a factory, Marta whispered, for how long? The café's only 10 years old, Holly said. But the Ridgeway Motel? That stood here before. It's in every map. Different names, same location. They just changed the shell. They spread out the photo documents. Surveillance images of Elridge residents, current ones. Neighbors. Patrons. Holly's barista, Ellen. Even Marta, in one image, entering the café a week ago. Where did they get these? Marta asked. Her voice had gone cold. One cabinet near the back of the bunker had been labeled. Active watch list, Phase 3. Inside it, a smaller sealed envelope had contained only 3 things. A breathing mask, marked matched subject. A journal filled with Finch's handwriting. A photo of Holly, standing in her own café. The journal was dense, erratic, more confession than report. One entry read. We thought we could manage the drift. That memories would degrade with time. But they got faster. Smarter. We tried to scatter them in isolated towns, quiet populations, minimal crossover. But they evolved mimicry into assimilation. Some don't even know their copies anymore. That's the brilliance. That's the trap. Another entry. Subject HM is holding stable. 9 retention cycles. Possible immunity, or original host undetected. Holly stared at the page. Retention cycles, she said. Like how many times they've replaced someone. 9 versions of me? Marta stepped away, staring at her like she wasn't sure what she was looking at. You're still you, she said. You have to be. But even Holly wasn't sure anymore. Then came the final reveal. Folded at the back of the journal was a ledger. Handwritten. Organized by vault number. Vault 1, terminated. Vault 2, active drift. Vault 3, live trial. Beneath Vault 3. Subject, H. Marks. Status, primary trigger host. Replication start, pending. Holly backed away from the page. I wasn't the one investigating the safe, she whispered. I was the invitation to open it. They hadn't just been collecting data. They'd been waiting for a subject curious enough to complete the circuit. Someone with local access. Someone who wouldn't run. They'd been waiting for her. Outside, headlights swept across the windows. Not a customer. Not a neighbor. 2 black SUVs. Government plates. Men in gray jackets emerged, one carrying a briefcase, another a Geiger counter. Marta rushed to the back door. We have to go. Now. But Holly didn't move. She was staring at the safe, her safe, still sitting in the center of the café. The red light blinked once more. Then began to glow solid. She walked toward it, ignoring Marta's shout. The safe opened. Not all the way, just enough. Inside, a single sealed folder. No code. No map. Just a printed name on the tab. Holly Marks, final entry. She opened it. Inside were photos of her café, her routines, her childhood home. A record of every time she laughed, every dish she cooked, every object she'd ever restored. Handwritten notes beneath each one. Successful mimicry observed. Drift complete. Subject now self-sustaining. And in the corner of the safe, behind the folder, was a mirror. And the reflection wasn't her. The truth didn't free the town. It infected it. By morning, the salvage spoon was surrounded. FBI, CDC, a black van with no insignia and equipment no one recognized. The street was roped off, the café declared a public safety hazard. Men in hazmat suits entered first, then others in suits with clipboards and no visible IDs. The press came next, kept at bay behind barricades. Elridge became a town on pause. Marta watched them scan every surface, label everything with evidence tags, and escort Holly into the van with the most tinted windows. They didn't arrest her. They relocated her. Officially, she'd been moved for observation. Privately, they offered her a choice: disappear into witness protection, or join a program they wouldn't name. When she asked what was in the safe, they told her it was above classification. But they didn't touch the second safe. Or the third. And there was a third. It appeared on her porch the night before the raid. Matte black, smaller, sleeker. Its dial was already turned, to her birthday. She didn't open it. Yet. The town buzzed with fractured explanations. Some believed the café was part of a Cold War experiment. Others said it was terrorism, a chemical scare, a drill. No one knew. But everyone remembered the teeth. And then came the DNA tests. Quietly, without press. No announcement. But Elridge's clinic confirmed something no one could explain. At least 8 residents had identical molar structures to teeth found in the café vault. Some of them were children. Some were elderly. One was Marta. She fainted when the doctor handed her the chart. Holly held her for hours, neither of them speaking. The town's historian vanished that week. So did the former Ridgeway motel manager's son. A few days later, Finch's last known alias, Richard M. Hall, was scrubbed from every public record. The ledger hadn't just listed names. It had assigned replacements. Twist number 3 hit hardest when Holly's mother finally confessed. They sat on a park bench, late at night, the town silent around them. Holly didn't speak, just handed her the ledger, her own name circled. Her mother took a long time to answer. "I didn't know," she whispered. "Not fully. They said you'd been exposed to something, during the motel fire. That your birth parents couldn't come back. They said you needed a quiet town and a stable home." Holly's voice barely held. "You adopted me because they told you to. I adopted you because the moment I saw you, I knew you were mine." But even that, Holly realized, might have been engineered. The idea of who she was had never belonged to her. She'd been someone's subject. Someone's test. Or worse, someone's mirror. That night, back in the empty café, she stood in front of the third safe. No red light. No clicks. Just silence. She ran a hand across the cool surface. This one was different. No rust. No seams. No serial numbers. Just a dial and her date of birth already waiting. She knew what was inside. Not gold. Not teeth. Her. Or a version of her. Or the next one. And if she opened it, she'd find out whether she was the original or the echo. Would you open the safe, to find out if you were real? Or close it, and let the lie keep you whole? Behind her, a soft knock sounded on the café glass. She turned. A girl stood there, young, maybe 20. Brown eyes. Nervous smile. Same cheek scar Holly got when she fell off her bike in 1989. "Hi," the girl said through the glass. "I think I'm supposed to meet someone here. Are you Holly?" Holly stepped back, heart pounding. Because she knew that face. She wore that face. The girl smiled wider. "I think I'm you." They called it a glitch. A scare. A classified anomaly. But Elridge would never be the same again. 3 months later, the café was gone. Not sold. Not boarded up. Gone, demolished by men in lead-lined suits and surrounded by fences no one could cross without a badge. What remained was an empty lot where grass refused to grow and birds refused to land. The townspeople stopped talking about the salvage spoon. When outsiders asked, they said, "Oh, just a place that burned down." No one ever mentioned the safes. Marta moved. Left a note. No return address. Just 3 words. "Don't follow me." Others followed suit. Families packed up, houses sold cheap. And those who stayed grew quiet, superstitious. Basement locks were triple-checked. Mirrors were covered at night. Birth records got double-verified. The whisper was gone. But the doubt remained. As for Holly, she didn't vanish. But she did stop answering to her name. After that night, after the girl at the window, she never reopened the café, never went back to her apartment. She was seen twice more. Once at a train station, dressed in gray, speaking to a man with no luggage. Another time in a surveillance photo leaked online, standing beside a black safe in a sterile lab, smiling into the lens. Then nothing. Some say she was taken. Others say she joined whatever project Mimicry became next. A theory surfaced in a conspiracy forum weeks later. The Holly who stayed wasn't the real one. The real one is gone. Or was gone years ago. Maybe she opened the safe and realized, she wasn't who she thought. Maybe none of us are. The thread was deleted within 24 hours. But the memory of the safe didn't fade. People in Elridge still whisper about the girl who brought home a rusted vault and turned the town into a mirror maze. The phrase, vaulted latte, went viral for a few weeks. It became a meme, used anytime something felt off, like déjà vu or a glitch in memory. Urban legend sprouted across forums. If your tooth aches at 3:17 a.m., don't look in the mirror. If your voice echoes back differently, run. If a black safe shows up on your porch, it's not for you. It's for the version you replaced. Even fiction couldn't outpace the rumors. A streaming docuseries tried to cover the Elridge event, but it ended up mostly speculation and blurred interviews. The real story remained underground, both figuratively and literally. Because somewhere beneath the concrete, a second hatch still exists. Still locked. Still untouched. Not Vault 1. Not Vault 2. Vault 3. And no one, not even the government, claimed to know what was inside. Maybe nothing. Maybe someone. And yet, on quiet nights, you can still find locals who swear they hear it. Not whispers this time. Knocks. Regular. Rhythmic. Mechanical. Not from above. From below. Would you have waited 50 years before lifting that safe's lid? Or would you have opened it, only to find someone already waiting inside?